okay, this is only 6 more chapters and then I can wash my hands of this forever. I can do this. Chapter 49. Because this wouldn't be torn between alphas without Xavier and Callie getting into an argument over something dumb. She then feels the need to pick a fight over him rejecting her. I also really hate how Xavier makes it seem like this wolf is this other entity that just happens to live inside of him, a real Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation, if you will. But at the same time, he also says that he is his wolf. Pick a lane. You can't have it both ways. He tries to make her understand that once he accepts the mate bond, then that's it. It's somehow more final than the strongest marriage vows. However, I think that we know at this point that if literal threats of murder against her are going to send her running, then the prospect of being tied to Xavier isn't going to do diddly. He goes on to say that he's rejecting her formally so that he can move on with his life, mainly so that he can be with other women. And a big part of this stems from having lost his wolf in the first place and the desire to never lose it again. He sounds like he needs therapy, not a relationship. And again, Callie continues to refuse to believe. She says that she wants to be his mate. Xavier keeps telling her that she doesn't understand, which she insists that she does. But, again, kind of feel like Callie is 100% of fries short of a Happy Meal, and she should probably never be legally allowed to make decisions. Xavier tries to tell her that she'll have at least a couple of kids with him, kids that will turn out to be werewolves, and meanwhile she'll be literally powerless against her own children. But again, Kelly of the good decision making starts talking about Xavier's underlying fears and stuff. It's honestly kind of maddening. She spent like 40 chapters doing literally everything she could to get away, including trying to kill herself. But now that the entire story has come out and she's doing everything she can to convince Xavier to let her stay. He finally asks about her parents and that she took the bed on her blocked cave because her mom is sick. You know, the mother that has literally not been mentioned since she got to Oregon. That mother. She says that she'll get the money some other way and that it would be cheap for her to sell her virginity, which, yeah, it's too little too late for that message considering that you have to slog through close to 50 chapters before you get her finally standing up for herself about the issue. And then, not even 2 seconds later, Kelly asks that since Xavier is rejecting her, would it be okay if she sold her virginity to Colton? What the He finally admits that he doesn't want for her to sleep with Colton because he doesn't want to share her. And I'm fine with this entire jealous thing, but that wasn't jealousy. That was, wow, I don't even like you. Go away. This is the peak of romance. Nothing could possibly top this. Sarcasm. They make out for a little bit before he asks about Lola. Kelly is naturally still angry over the entire thing, which makes sense when you remember that Lola left Kelly not even 10 minutes earlier. And what's worse is that Lola had apparently been feeding info to Colton this entire time. I'm not even sure if Lola was ever actually Kelly's friend or if Lola only just saw Kelly as a means to an end. However, Kelly is less upset over that and more upset over the fact that her name isn't even Lola. It's Aaliyah, or Leah for short. Xavier then interrupts Callie complaining about her friend's legal name and asks her to be his mate, and I'd like to remind everybody that this entire chapter took place in like 5 minutes. Chapter 50. Xavier and Callie argue about Callie being his mate from the other end of the conversation. I'm done. I am so done with this. He then threatens to impregnate her right this second, but that's only just making Callie second guess everything. This story went from tacky to the implication of a rape and forceful impregnation joke, which is weird because I wasn't sure that the story could get worse than Callie constantly trying to kill herself and Xavier's constant threats to murder Callie. But here we are. And then because this entire thing wasn't romantic enough, Xavier then sits and openly insults all humans, calls them weak and fragile. But even after all of that, even after Kelly says that she needs time to think things through, she still wants to be Xavier's mate. I don't even know what she wants. What in the world could she possibly see in this situation that would be worth staying for? Were the constant threats of death somehow a turn on? I don't mean to yuck on somebody's yum, but you should probably seek intense psychiatric help for something like that. That isn't healthy. Kelly then bullies him into cuddling with her. Yes, that's right, folks. She has to force the man that she claims she wants to spend the rest of her life with to even touch her. So romantic. Sarcasm. Colton comes in and they talk briefly about Lola / Leah / whatever her name is. Kelly is still angry, which Colton is like, "You're still angry about that? It hasn't even been 10 minutes. Why?" And then, literally 50 chapters in, the narration tells us that Colton and Xavier are twins. Which, this is news to me, but okay. But Xavier was born first, so and he's the alpha, I guess. Sucks to be Colton. Kelly then starts trying to make out with Xavier. Again, honey, if you have to force a straight male to even as much kiss you, you should probably just cut your losses. And then Kelly makes a Vietnam War joke. Although following the rape and forceful impregnation joke at the start of the chapter, the Vietnam War joke seems tame in comparison. I thought that Colton had left, but he apparently had just been standing there, probably pretty awkwardly, as Kelly tried to force herself onto Xavier. He brings up Lola again, and Kelly says that she's going to go talk to her. Colton tries to convince her not to do that, but she goes anyway. And then, despite the fact that Colton has said within the span of this stupid chapter that Jay had left, Jay is still there. Kelly then bullies her way past him to get to the room where Lola is apparently crying over everything that happened. Chapter 51. Kelly goes into the room and hands Lola a fistful of tissues. She then gets upset over the sight of Lola's battered body, but Lola says not to worry about it. It's only a few broken ribs, but they'll heal. But she also has to explain that werewolves have super healing powers, and that the healing time will probably be, a few days at the most. Kelly then starts in about how Lola lied to Kelly about her name, but Lola says that she's so upset that she's gonna go legally change her name. That sounds healthy. As the two girls eventually reach a point of, "No, I love you," while crying about the entire thing, I just want to pause and say, I feel like Lola is getting off way too easy here. She's upset because her terrible actions led to somebody that she called a friend almost dying, both by Kelly's own hand as well as Xavier and the other pack. Lola doesn't deserve Kelly's forgiveness, not even a little. She lied to Kelly about their entire relationship. She manipulated Kelly. She intentionally put Kelly into harm's way. I stand by my earlier statement that I'm not even sure if Lola viewed Kelly as an actual friend or simply a means to an end. Kelly then regurgitates basically the previous 2 chapters of her wanting to become Xavier's mate. Literally, not one single person wants for this to happen, and Lola asks her a bunch of questions to make sure that Kelly actually understands, which again, kind of feel like she doesn't. Kelly then has a random thought and goes running back to Xavier. She asks if their children would be half-breeds. Naturally, Xavier belittles and demeans her, treating her like she's an infant over the entire thing, which is totally romantic. Sarcasm. But he eventually says that he went rogue and kind of broke off from the pack. Although I thought that the entire point of Lola finding a mate for Xavier was so that the pack can reform, but without the bonds of the pack, they don't need to have children, which only just makes Xavier's earlier impregnation joke somehow worse because they don't even need to have children. Xavier asks Kelly about her school. She says that she's still on the school holiday, which pretty sure that several months have passed at this point. I don't know what kind of school holiday lasts for this long. But then again, the fact that she also dropped all communication with her parents and they never filed a police report is also telling about where the writer's priorities are. Xavier wants her to finish school at least, making zero mention of anything like transferring schools or even him moving out to be with her while she finishes. They then declare that Kelly is his mate, officially. But it's hard to find romance even in this when their entire relationship is built upon rape and murder jokes and Xavier's action making Kelly almost kill herself twice. Chapter 52. Now that they're official, they do Gru's couple stuff. I'd also like to remind you that they had their argument and Xavier threatened to rape her not even 15 minutes earlier. I'm also wondering why this is still going on when what little plot that there is has already wrapped up. But trust the writer of 30 chapters of fluff to somehow drag even the ending out for way longer than it needs to be. Kelly finally asks why it is that if Xavier liked her so much, why didn't he do bedroom stuff with her? Even though they kind of did, but he always stopped her just before they got to the main event. There was mouth stuff in exposed bathing suit areas. Xavier says that he didn't want to use her like that, which, again, is really rich considering all of the nonsense that Kelly has been through and the way that he treated her. He makes a rape joke, but he didn't actually have intercourse with her. Kelly tries to ask Xavier about how many other girls he slept with, but then she gets upset when he tells her, even though she's the one who asked anyway. She also asks about the random naked chick when they first got to the house. She thought that there would be a revolving door of floozies, but there hadn't been, and I just kind of assumed that they were in the background, but the writer was more focused on Kelly's suicidal thoughts and whatever Colton was doing. But Xavier says that it was more of Colton testing Kelly to see how she'd react. And out of all the terrible things that the wolves had done to Kelly, that one seems the least harmless. Kelly then demands to see Xavier's wolf. But Xavier shifts and Kelly realizes that he's basically a really big dog. Colton comes back in and oh my god, why is Xavier's room somehow the place for Colton to be constantly? Does this guy seriously have literally nothing better to do? But I guess that with all that happening, Xavier never bothered to tell Colton that he can shift again. Kelly has to explain it to him like he's 5. And that the two of them are mates now. Xavier changes back, and then Colton says that his brother clearly doesn't have control over his wolf. Colton is also upset that Xavier took Kelly as his maid, which, wasn't this all his idea in the first place? Why is he somehow upset that this worked out exactly as he wanted it to? Kelly also asks about the girl who was Colton's mate and asks if he killed her or not. She knows that Colton didn't seem sad about it, but the girl was part of a pack that literally tried to murder all of the main characters on multiple occasions. Maid or not, I wouldn't be shaken up if any of them died. But since Colton refuses to outright deny that the girl isn't dead, Kelly randomly decides that he must have killed her and is upset about the entire thing. Chapter 53. As soon as Kelly leaves the room, Colton runs on his brother, and we need to rehash the entire idea of an alpha's mate all over again. I'm sick of reading about it. Kelly was told, but it's still debatable on how much she actually understands. Colton won't stop talking about how Kelly is human, but if it was honestly that big of an issue, then why did Xavier's wolf pick Kelly as his mate? You'd think that it would be counterproductive to select a mate that wouldn't produce strong offspring. It's literally the exact opposite of survival of the fittest. Xavier then asks about Colton's mate. He hums and haws about the entire thing before he admits that he likes her, and that he didn't even reject her so that they could move on with their lives. He doesn't say as much, but I get the feeling he wants to be with his mate, but he also wants to put his little wolf into as many caves as possible. Do you see the problem here? Xavier encourages him to mutually reject the girl so that they can both go on their own ways. They bicker for a little bit longer about Kelly's decision before Xavier muses about Kelly. He knows that he shouldn't rebuild the pack to protect Kelly, but he feels like he should. But then he decides that it's the alpha in him. Then Colton shoved Xavier, saying that he spaced out, which is probably the most legit funny scene in this stupid story. I hate it when characters zone out for paragraphs at a time, especially in the middle of a conversation. This is literally the first time that I've seen another character reacting towards a situation like that. They then decide to go down to where the girls are. Last chapter! Chapter 54. We jump back over to Kelly asking Lola if she thinks Colton killed his mate, but Lola doesn't think so. She has secondhand reports of when Xavier killed his first mate, and Colton isn't acting like that at all. Lola then points out how Kelly's bruises look better already and asks if the two of them became mates, that she heard him shifting earlier and a wolf licking a mate helps him heal faster, and then she guesses over how the two of them are mates now. And then she brings up Alex. Who is Alex, you ask? Even Kelly has forgotten who he is. Remember the dweeby little guy who was way too into Kelly back home? Kelly sure doesn't. Anyway, Kelly asked Lola about an old boyfriend she'd mentioned. Apparently, Lola's memories were suppressed for a while, and she literally forgot about Jay. Since this is the last chapter, I'm just going to let that one go. And then Kelly finally gets angry over the entire situation that was 100% because of Lola's manipulations. And I feel like Lola totally has it coming, but it needed to be when Kelly first went to Lola a couple of chapters earlier. Somehow Kelly's forgiveness over the entire situation, and then half an hour later going back on her forgiveness, it's even worse. Kelly is a terrible person, but what else is new? Colton comes in and starts grilling Kelly about her role as the alpha's mate, which, give it a break, will you? This is the last chapter, and this is what you want to spend your time on? Xavier then takes Callie on a trip down memory lane when she first found out that wolf bears are real. Let's go back to grilling Kelly about being the Alpha's mate. He says that since Kelly is no longer selling her blocked cave, then he is free to take it whenever he likes, which he was free to take it at literally any time. This isn't romantic because he was waiting for her permission or the removal of the blocked cave auction business to be over. Not when he was holding Kelly hostage for weeks on end and emotionally tortured her to the point where she literally tried to kill herself. They then do some stuff that really hammers in the idea that this was written by a 12-year-old. It's not quite arguing, but it's also not what a mature adult would call romantic by any means. With that note, the first part of the story comes to a merciful end. And this. I am not touching anything else from this tainted app ever again. I know that there are multiple writers and stuff, but after allowing nonsense like rape jokes to fly, I'm worried about what else might be on there. I'm deleting this app and leaving a 1-star review.